they had read my AFRL teleportation physics study.
Mm.
And in chapter 5, I talked about the DIA analysis of China's experiments with gifted psychic children,
Yeah.
where they were able to physically teleport animate and inanimate objects
I've
from
heard about this.
laboratory sealed test tubes that were locked away in one vault, like a skiff vault. They had high-speed cameras taking data, other sensors taking data, and the
And
cameras
do you think
would
that was
show
real?
that
You think those were real?
those were real.
Wow.
Hal Puthoff went out there to meet those scientists
Wow.
under DIA sponsorship to find out if those are real. And so the DIA wrote extensive reports on it. So they basically published in their peer review literature, and Hal was able to demonstrate, was able to convince himself that these were not charlatans. They
Wow.
were not playing magic tricks and hoaxing everybody. This was a legitimate peer review journal. It wasn't low class. It wasn't marginal. It was high class, and it was funded by their aerospace, by the People's Liberation Army's Aerospace Institute
Wow.
and Aerospace Medicine Institute. So you don't get funding for that on junk.
Right.
Okay. So because even they have standards, scientific standards. So so basically you see the contents of the test tubes vanish and reappear anywhere from a few feet away in a vault, in another vault that's sealed, in another sealed test tube like container or flask in that other skiff vault, and the cameras and sensors are in there are observing it appear inside that sealed container.
Wow.
And then they separated them further and further, and then they got to the AM and FM microtransmitters. And that was very interesting because at the time they would disappear, the radio receivers, because these transmitters were receiving a signal, the laboratory receivers in the lab were detecting the signals getting weaker and weaker and weaker in correlation with what you would expect from a transmitter that's moving away from the receiver, and it's far away with the 1/r² radio wave intensity drop-off, field intensity drop-off that you would expect. So it's the 1/r² distance between the transmitter and receiver of the intensity of the radio wave falling. And so that meant it went off at a far distance, and then they started detecting it getting stronger as it materialized into the other sealed chamber, and with the materializing into the sealed container that was contained in the sealed vault chamber. And so they did some calculations. Their best estimate was that these kids were teleporting these things through other space dimensions.
Wow.
That's the only thing they could conclude.
That's so fascinating.